الحق المكين القوي المتين.
والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه ما بعد. Today I wanted to cover some verses in the Quran that should be memorized by us, and some of our scholars have called them verses of optimism, verses of getting our spirits high, verses that we're going to use them and recall them during times of difficulty, times of stress, times of crises. Because the one thing that is a part and parcel of our life is difficulty and struggle. No human being lives a Jannah on earth. You might think a person does when you see him or her with something that you don't have. But the reality is that every single human being without exception is struggling in some fashion, form or manner. Now I'm not saying it's all the same. No doubt those people that are worried about bombs dropping on their heads, those people whose families have been split apart, those people who lost children, may Allah protect all of us. No doubt that is a level of difficulty. But nobody is living a Jannah on earth, because this earth is not meant for Jannah. This earth is meant for trial and testing and tribulation. So the one who is wealthy is being tested in his way. The one who is poor is being tested in his way. The one with family is being tested in his way. The one without family is being tested in his way. Every one of us is being tested. That's what life is about. So there are certain verses that we should memorize and use so that we can, insha'Allah ta'ala, overcome these struggles. And I'll mention some of them, obviously, as usual, time is limited. And then I'll conclude with a verse of optimism on a spiritual note. I want to begin verses of optimism from a worldly perspective, from a dunyawi perspective. When we face a dunyawi problem, we should be optimistic. First verse, all of you know it. فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. This is a rule that Allah Azza wa Jal reminds us of. It's a rule that we should all memorize. فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. Allah never sends down a difficulty, except that along with the difficulty there is a yusr, an ease. And then notice, as we know the tafsir of the verse, Allah then says فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. With the same usr is another yusr. Ibn Abbas said, never will one difficulty be able to overcome two or more ease. Always the ease will win out over the difficulty. فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ, the alif lam here, فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ, and then yusr is without alif lam. مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. The meaning here, the same difficulty Allah sends down, He will send down multiple ease. So, if you are struggling financially, Allah is saying, don't worry, your health will be good. If you have a health issue, Allah is saying you have loving family. If you have a family problem, Allah is saying society is at peace. In other words, whatever difficulty you are facing, Allah is saying, I'm going to give you multiple ease that will make other aspects easy for you, even as you struggle with this difficulty. So have this as an optimism. The second optimistic verse, again, we all know this. These are all basic things. We should just memorize them so that when we have a problem, when a financial issue happens, when a family issue happens, we remind ourselves. The second verse that we should remind ourselves of is لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. You all know what this verse means. No soul is going to be burdened with more than what it can bear. And what this means is, this is a rule. Again, these are rules of the Quran. These are the rules of creation that Allah is sending down. What this indicates is beautiful. Some people, they think, I can't bear this, it's too much for me. The struggle is too hard. I don't have what's in me. And to them we say, your Creator knows that you have it in you to overcome this struggle. You might not trust yourself, your Creator trusts you. You might not believe in yourself, Allah knows that you can do it. Or else you wouldn't be having the struggle. If you could not bear this burden, the burden would not be on you. It's as simple as that. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Allah knows you have the strength, you have the courage, you have the fortitude, you have the Iman. Allah knows you have the inner capacity and the external will to overcome this issue. That's why you're facing it. If Allah knew that you couldn't face it, you wouldn't be facing it. So trust in Allah, because Allah is trusting in this case. You get my point here, that Allah is trusting in you in the sense here that Allah knows you can do it. So this is a second verse of optimism, that no matter what trial you're facing, no matter how difficult the situation is, Allah knows that you have what is inside of you and external factors to overcome the struggle. And you shall be the ultimate and the victor if you turn to Allah. Never does a calamity happen to a believer. Never does a tragedy occur to a believer, except that at the end of the tragedy or the calamity, the believer is the victor. It doesn't mean the calamity goes away. If you've lost a loved one, the loved one's not going to come back. Doesn't mean the calamity goes away. It means your internal struggle will make you a victor over that particular issue. You will come out better, stronger, and with more Iman, unless it's your time to die. And if it's your time to die, you will come out a mu'min and maybe even a shaheed, and you'll still be the winner. The mu'min, the believer, is never a loser. This is what the Quran and Sunnah teaches us. Never does the believer come out a loser, because Allah has set the system up for you. Allah has set the system up for you that whatever situation you face, if you turn to Him, you will be the winner. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها.
If you can't go half glass full, if you can't be the person of change and drive positivity and optimism, I just think it's a mistake. I believe being the bigger man, I believe not holding grudges. I believe that one of the reasons I'm successful in life, let alone business, is I don't allow poison or negativity to be stored within my confines. And I think it's a very big thing. I've been talking a lot more about optimism and positivity being a real factor. I'm starting to get a little more zen in my older age, and I believe that if you have a shit list, if you have a list, if you hold a grudge, you're coming at your own expense. That you're not doing anything. Do I forget? No. But it's just context. It doesn't mean I'm going to get you with it. It just means I have to navigate around it. And that's a very big difference. I don't want to stick it to you. I just need to navigate around your truth. I think nothing sticks it to anybody better than results. You know, instead of tearing them down, just get so goddamn big that's the ultimate. I got you back. Everyone's like, your energy. I've come to realize it's just optimism. Just happy, just positive. That's what it is. Just environment, raise, like just all that stuff. It doesn't come naturally to a lot of people. I think that's like, you know, if I was ever to say I'm lucky about something, forget about the business results, it's lucky that optimism comes naturally to me. Like I'm just optimistic. Like I just think that so much works for me because I refuse to accept the negative. Like, and I hate when people say it's, you know, it's an option or it's a choice. I don't think it comes natural to everybody. I think the biggest obstacle to success is a lack of optimism. If you lack optimism, it's game over. It's true. It's just true. Like, if you can't look for the bright side or look at the half glass full or be optimistic instead of pessimistic. If you can't do that, you just absolutely have no chance of winning because it's all how one synthesizes what's in front of them. You know what I mean? Like, life's hard enough, the game's hard enough, the market's hard enough against you that if you're against yourself, that's too stacked. The deck becomes too stacked.
Sometimes your plans and Allah's plans are the same. Sometimes you decide to go somewhere and Allah decides to let you go also. Sometimes you decide to go to a college and Allah gives you admission into that college also. You decide to graduate early and Allah lets you graduate early also. So things go according to your plan. All that means is your plan and Allah's plan was the same for that one thing. But sometimes your plan and Allah's plan are not the same. Sometimes you want to stay in that job for 10 years but you get fired after 6 months. Sometimes you apply to this school and you had the best application but you still didn't get in, and people with a worse application than you got in. It happens. Sometimes your plans and Allah's plans are not the same. These ayat are recognizing that not everything will go according to my plan. I will still have to make a plan. I will still have to put in the effort. But at the end of the day, it is Allah who will decide whether this plan will come through or not. This is وَذْكُرْ رَبَّكَ إِذَا نَسِيتَ. But then the most powerful part of this ayah that I wanted to spend extra time on, because this is really one of the most beautiful lessons in the entire Quran, in my opinion. If the Muslim understands this, their life becomes easy. وَقُلْ عَسَىٰ أَن يَهْدِيَنِي رَبِّي لِأَقْرَبَ مِنْ هَذَا رَشَدًا. These words are a dua. And more than a dua, they are a statement of optimism. Let's introduce it that way. You're thinking about the future just because of the use of the word asa, which is harf al-taraji in the Arabic language, a word or a fi'l al-taraji, a verb used to express hope. Allah is teaching us in this ayah that the Muslim has to have hope in the future. My iman in the Quran makes me optimistic about the future. I don't care what the news says. I don't care what happened yesterday and the day before and the day before and the day before. I will not be among those Muslims who sit on a table and say the situation of the ummah keeps getting worse and worse and worse. Oh my God, things are only going to get much, much more terrible. And there's another tragedy coming, I guarantee you. Watch what happens. Oh, you think 9/11 was bad because it's the anniversary, right? You think 9/11 was bad? Oh my God, that was nothing. Watch what happens to the ummah now, and then watch what happens now. This attitude is directly against the ayah of this book. Just in the word asa. You're supposed to be full of optimism and hope that Allah will make things better for you, for the people around you, for humanity. You're supposed to have that attitude. And then he says that what should you say about your own future? Asa an yahdiyani rabbi. Perhaps my master will guide me. He'll give me guidance. What is the most optimistic thing you can have in your future? Everybody wants a better job, or better financial situation, or a better family situation, a better health situation. We want all of these things, but you know what? The most fundamental thing you and I need, more essential than the oxygen that we're breathing, is Allah's guidance. So once you have that, everything else will work out. When you don't have that, you can have everything else and you have nothing.
Don't be a negative person. Negativity is such a bad attitude, a bad character. Everything you see it in a negative way. Everything you look at only the bad talk, the bad things. You don't think of the positive of the talk that you hear. You don't think about the positive that maybe your family have. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said, if you don't like someone, your wife, in the hadith of Muslim, قال لا يكره مؤمن مؤمنة في رواية لا يفرق مؤمن مؤمنة. لا يبغضها. Don't hate your spouse because of a quality that you see in her or in him. He said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, instead, think about the positive thing that they have. One of the most common hadith that we're all familiar with, that the Prophet ﷺ said there is people were in a cave, and the cave was blocked with a big, huge rock. And this rock, every one of the three people who inside that cave asked Allah with one of their best deeds. But one of them asked Allah by something very interesting. He said, I had a female cousin who I loved so much and I desired so much. And I tried to seduce her so many times to refuse. And one day she asked for money. And I told her, I will give it to you, but you give me yourself. And he said, when I was so near to do the haram, she told me, if you badly want me like that, marry me. And I let her go and I gave her the money. Ya Rab, I only let her go for your sake. The question is, when the Prophet ﷺ told us the story, he focused in which part of the story? The negative part, how evil he is, taking advantage of her, or he focused on the positive part, that how he let her go, how he's a good person. When the Sahaba saw a drunk person, some of them said, he's always drunk. He's always brought to the Prophet ﷺ's masjid drunk. La'anahullah, may Allah curse him. They cursed him. The Prophet ﷺ said, no. Don't help the shaitan over your brother. إِنَّهُ يُحِبُّ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ. He loves Allah and His Messenger. He looked at the positive in the person. Invest in the positive thing. The Prophet ﷺ said about the society of Mecca, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. There is good in Mecca. There is good in the people. There is good in the nation. And I came to complete that goodness. Whoever says people are all bad, he is the worst. That's what our Prophet ﷺ said.
يا نفس إن لم تظفري